Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and my living room. Same living room as last time. A lot less going on though. After the late night elaborate setup that I did for the first video, I wanted to kind of go against that a bit and not lock myself into these super involved lighting setups. Get your freaking claws off of me, you freak. Okay. Yeah, to not let myself get too locked into needing to feel like I have to set up, 3 different lights and obsess over it. That's something that's fun. I enjoy that. But I think what I enjoy more is just, or what I need to do more, what I value more, is just having some consistency with this. So I had an hour or so, and I thought I'd just put something together with right here at the window with this rapidly changing light, very high. It's not very favorable, but the shears do a lot to help. The color temperature is shifting. I can see on the monitor. I think we're looking pretty good again now, but the only thing I've added to this situation is one little fairly hard light source over here that's the same color as this, and it's causing this little edge right here. Watch. Boom. Boom. See how much that does? It's pretty cool, right? This is the kind of little thing I'm just enjoying experimenting with. All of my gear is packed up right now because I've got a job this weekend, so all my lights, all that stuff is not available for doing this. And that's a good thing because I don't have time to do that right now anyway. But what I do have time for is this. So there's a few things I wanted to talk about that I've already just touched on. So somewhere in the intersection between YouTube and just people who are interested, hobbyist video makers, or maybe somebody who just wants to get into shooting home video to document their lives. There's this interplay between the technical requirements of getting footage that's worth anything and the sort of mental and physical load that brings onto whatever situation you're trying to document. Like, for example, this morning, I went out with my son for an early canoe paddle out on the lake. And I decided I was going to make shooting video of that an aspect of it. And I'm kind of experimenting with the best ways to cover that particular scene because it's a scene that shows up in my life. It's accessible enough that I can kind of practice and eventually I'll get it really great. If say we want to go on a longer little canoe day where we go somewhere, we set up at this park, we paddle way out, that kind of thing. We do a little trip. Or we take a canoe trip somewhere else on a river or something. I'll kind of have a better idea of what rigs make that plausible and how much is too much. I set up 2 cameras. I had the little DJI Action 4. I clamped it onto the front of the canoe so it would look back towards us. And then I had my main camera right here all rigged out with like a monitor and a side handle and on sticks, a tripod, spread out nice and wide. And I'd done it once and it's very stable. I'm like manually focusing here in front of me, flipping it around, getting shots of me paddling, getting the oar, getting the sky, seeing how many different shots I can kind of come up with a 28mm lens from a single vantage point. There's all these different factors that impose a certain limitation on you technically, and they impose a certain limitation or burden on you physically, because your camera gets bigger, your gear gets heavier, you have to think more about it. Are you just running auto? Do you just want to like let the camera do what it's going to do and capture the scene? For some people, that might be what you want to do. If you're not interested in finessing the shot and looking at the waveform and making sure your highlights aren't clipping and, you know, really trying to craft artful frames, then don't do that. Don't worry about that. Just point the camera in this direction you want and give it the amount of attention, photographic or creative attention, that you think it's worth. You know, I'm at a level where I'm really enjoying the process of practicing my framing, my exposure, specifically my exposure and my lighting. So I don't mind having a more rigged out camera, doing more tripod setups, having less shots, more static shots, and fewer of them if it means the quality is better and they're frames that I can really be proud of as a photographer. And I pull stills from my 4K video footage all the time. And some of my best photographs are like, you know, when you're shooting at 24 frames per second, there's a certain amount of motion blur that happens with a shutter speed of 1/48th or 1/50th of a second. So there's always these times where the motion blur just kind of like, it's blurring and blurring, and then that person looks, and there's a frame where everything's sharp and perfect, and you're like, yes, that's it, that's the frame. And I'll grab that frame and I'll export it, and, you know, as far as anybody will ever remember or know, it was just a photograph. And that's one way I get around the other whole issue, which might be worth making its own video about, is the whole photography versus video. And that plays into this directly, because taking photographs, you can afford to be a little more intentional with it, because it's like the requirement of your time is less. You can take a few shots, boom, 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 put it down, walk away. Pick it back up if something's happening. Take a few frames, you know? You don't have to like hold your shot. You don't have to like follow the action. You don't have to have these sustained 10, 20 second clips where your focus is nailed the whole time. And I don't know, I don't think I'm doing a great job describing how much more involved it is to shoot video, but you know it is. But more importantly, it's the amount of work that's required when you get back home or when you get back inside, the amount of work that's required to take the file on your camera to something that anybody will ever see and enjoy. It's such a lower threshold for photos. I can just link up to my camera, transfer the image over to my phone, do a quick edit in the built-in iPhone app, and then send it, text it out, share it with people. There it is. Beautiful photo, beautiful memory captured, and you're done. With video, usually you want to put together a sequence to share it. And that means importing it into your editor, and maybe if your audio sucks, maybe putting music with it, or even if it doesn't, you might want to put music with it. You want to edit something. It needs to be, you know, a couple minutes maybe. And then you export it and you have to upload it somewhere because the file size is so much bigger. It's just so much more work to get a video shared. And that's part of the reason why, like I talked about in the last video, I have all this footage sitting around on these hard drives that I never did anything with. I'd shoot and I'd enjoy shooting it, but then editing it kind of felt like a burden because I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. I don't know, I didn't have a YouTube channel to really, or a reason to really do it other than just preserving my memories. So I started just taking the raw footage, taking all the files, throwing them onto a timeline, and just spitting it all out like you'd have a VHS home movie tape that's just from hitting the record button to hitting the standby button, and you've just got everything that happens in between there. Now, I'll admit that there's a bit of a different way you think when you're shooting that way versus how we usually think as videographers, that you want to start recording as soon as you got the thing roughly in frame, so you're capturing audio and whatever. Then you get your exposure, you get your focus, and you get your white balance if you haven't done that. Now somewhere here you'll cut that and in the edit, and you'll use this part of it. So when you're used to shooting that way, you end up with a lot of junk on the front and the back of footage, especially if you're setting up a tripod and going and walking out into the scene, and maybe you forget about it, or maybe you don't want to be bothered running back and forth, and you end up with a 10-minute clip that's like 50 gigabytes or whatever. You got to cut that down into something that is usable in the context of some sequence you're putting together. A moving vantage point, because it's on a tripod, but we're in a boat that's floating, so you get this nice motion to it. But I have started to enjoy shooting in this thoughtful way so much that it is it's part of the activity, and I'm okay with that. Because I'm confident enough with the level of technical execution I want to mess with. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to, I practice my technical stuff with just around the house, whatever, here and there kind of stuff. But when you're out on a backpacking trip, you're out on a hike, you're out at a park, you're out doing something, you don't want to be fiddling and experimenting too much, because you want to live your life. You want to be there with your family. You want to talk. You want to paddle the boat and not be like fiddling with your camera settings. That's a struggle for a lot of people, I know. And it has been for a long time for me too. But I feel like I have a renewed sense of purpose behind my shooting. So it's fun, and just it's become acceptable for me right now in this season to make crafting thoughtful frames a part of the situation that I'm experiencing with my family. And my son's grown up with a camera around his whole life, so he doesn't think anything of it. If you just start getting into it and your wife or your girlfriend or whatever is not used to having a camera pointed at them or whatever all the time, it can be a little awkward, but you have to if it's worth it to you, you just have to push through and kind of acclimate everyone to your new hobby. And especially once you start putting out these little memory reels of a situation that they were in, it all comes together, and people are like, dang, I'm glad you did that. I'm glad this memory is preserved, even if they were not thrilled about it in the moment. I get it. But so I just wanted to make a little video about that, because it's something that I really want to focus on with this channel. How to assess the gear you're going to bring, the different levels of gear and of auto, kind of iPhone on auto mode, up to kind of what I'm doing, where I have like a cinema rig with external monitor and all this stuff, and I'm like really in there trying to as quick and efficient as possible get really good high-end shots that I'd like put on my demo reel. There's a lot of levels of gradation between those two things, and it's just a matter of finding out, what do you want to mess with? What's it worth to you? How much do you like doing this? Is it a utilitarian thing for you, or is it a artistic, creative practice and hobby that you want to invest time and attention into? Think about it, because that should inform what you bring how much you shoot, and how you shoot. And we'll explore more on this channel, kind of the how you shoot moving forward. So thanks for joining me again, and I'll talk to you later.